You're listening to the House of Chapters podcast. Welcome, Jay. Can I call you Jay?
Yes, of course. Just Jay. I'm saving pixels by not writing my full name, which is Jason.
Okay. So yeah, happy to have you and to finally be able to talk together about all this
Yeah.
good stuff that I'm not going to spoil right away, but we've been planning in our DMs, and so serialized fiction has that been a part of your Substack journey from the beginning, or not?
Not at all. Not at all. Yeah, I have been silently plugging away on a book, which is ISLA, and I thought at one point last year, you know what? I'm far enough ahead in this book that I'm going to start figuring out what serialized fiction looks like on Substack. I think you're hitting the nail on the head, and I think I've had a number of conversations with other serial writers where they get 1, 2, 3, maybe even 6 or 8 chapters in, and their audience starts to die off. And I just think that's just sort of the natural way that sort of the online transaction of here's my next chapter goes. It's a very different thing when you have a book sitting on your nightstand or on your e-reader where you can be interested and then you can pick it back up, and the author has no idea that that's happened. Yeah. It just sort of happens in the background. But when you have a serialized product that comes out week after week, what you're hoping for is people to read it and to comment and to like it and things like that. But that's just sort of not the way it works. And I think you have to be okay with that from a serialized writer perspective, from a serialized author perspective.
Yeah.
I also think, and a number of people have said this too, so I don't think I'm alone in this, or it's not a original thought of my own, is that your readers will somehow find you if you keep plugging away. That's been the case for me. I certainly haven't, obviously I'm very active in the community and things like that, but also people have found my writing and have found the serialized novel that I put out, not through me plugging it daily, but just through word of mouth. They hear it from somebody else. They see a comment from somebody else. And so there's sort of an attribution that goes along with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, with House of Chapters, what I also realize is the first chapters of many stories have, of course, the most likes because it's a new story, maybe a new author, a new idea. You like how they write. Then some click on the next chapter, read it, and it's the same for almost everyone that the later chapters have less interaction. But so it made me realize that it doesn't take away from the idea and how you write, the quality of your writing. It's just that I guess people are also waiting for it to be finished and to be able to read it as an ebook or as a printed book. You know what I mean?
Right.
In the sense that, not that they're actually waiting for you and me to be done with our serialized fiction, but once you do finish it and self-publish it or have it published, the people that like the writing and like the first 6 chapters but then lost track of it because Substack is full of quality writing and a lot of interesting things that are not serialized fiction. If they see it published, they will remember how you made them feel at the beginning, I think. So that's also been motivation for me to be like, okay, let's finish the story and then finally get to work on it again, edit it. And so I've posted last week. I've been thinking of my story, Would You Like Some More Help, as a first draft now, and I wasn't thinking like that before. Not that I thought it was perfect the way it came out, but now I actually know, okay, yeah, it is a first draft because it won't be the same as I put on Substack. It will be the complete polished version once I publish it.
I think that's a good way of thinking about it. I feel like I know a number of authors who whatever that draft is that they put out into the world as part of their serialized version, they then go back and iterate on it for whatever their publishing version of the final thing is. And I think I believe that's the right way to do it, because you sort of have a different perspective on it. Stephen King talks about putting that draft in a drawer for 6 weeks and don't take it out. And then you look at it again. In a serialized novel, in my case, 36-ish chapters, I'm now at the point where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to take it out. How have you gone back recursively and looked at the original chapters and sort of where you're at and where you think the story is going, and looked at it with a sort of critical eye or even a rose-colored view?
I'm saving a bit the feedback I'm getting from people who spend a bit more time with it, but also from people who are like, okay, first 3 chapters, and then they tell me, this and that, it's a cool idea, but I don't like this and that. And it makes me think, but I haven't gone back yet. I will finish writing it first, and then I will take the whole thing, and I want to keep some of the, let's say, rawness. I don't want to rewrite each and every one of the chapters, but there is some feedback that I will take, and other feedback that I will not, because people, there's literally like one person saying, I love how you go from this point of view to that point of view, and then a week later somebody reads and it's like, oof, I think somebody commented, I'm getting some whiplash from the fast changes between characters. I was like, yeah, it's short chapters. And then it's also interesting, chapter 20, I was talking to Dory, who I've written some blog posts with in the last couple of weeks, and she read some chapters. She actually read the whole thing so far, and around chapter 21 is when I was now writing for let's say 100, 150 subscribers, not for my mom and sisters and wife anymore. And so it's interesting because there's some stuff happening in those chapters, probably because I'm like, oh, what will they think if I write that? Or is it still okay if my chapter is just 300 words? And so it's a bit different. And so I will have to try to keep the tone throughout most of the book also.
Yeah. Are you finding, as you edit, are you finding that you're doing, or as you're writing, it sounds like you're doing self-editing. Is that indeed what happens?
As in that nobody else reads it before I post it?
Well, no, what I mean is that now that you know that there are a number of people who are receiving this and a number of readers that are following along with you, at least at some level, is it changing your writing? What I thought I heard you say was that now that 150 people are subscribed to you, will they like it if you do X or Y?
Yeah, no, that's like between chapter 20 and 26, I'd say. There was some change that is I could notice and Dory could notice, for example. But then I went back to like trying to not care about the sub count, and now as I'm heading towards 600, of which 380 I think are on subscribed to my publication, and about 210 to the House of Chapters, which is also makes a difference a bit. But anyway, the numbers don't. I don't write for the numbers anymore. I try to write it just as I wrote at the beginning. But obviously, I improved in some ways. I found a bit my voice in some other areas, and so it's a whole mix of things. That's why also I want to like get done with the story now, so that I can let it rest a little bit, and then pick it back up, and then try to get the tone from the beginning to the end right. Even though the story gets a bit darker towards the end, so that tone is like that. But my voice as an author, just for it to be a bit as coherent as possible, let's say.
Yeah. I have another question for you, and I've been meaning to ask this of other serial writers. Has publishing it as a serial changed the format by which you think about each chapter? I'll give you for instance, in my serialized novel ISLA, I had in mind that I was going to do a number of asides, which are excerpts from a fictitious book as part of it. And as I started thinking about and started rearranging things for serialization, I actually swapped some of the chapters around so that it flowed slightly differently because of it. And it actually taught me something sort of about the arc of the book in doing that, and also the arc of the story, and where you need to give your readers a break, and where it's okay to step on the gas and go a little bit faster. And it helped me modulate sort of the amount of information per chapter in doing that. And so I was able to delay some things for later, or bring some other things more to the forefront or earlier in the book than I had originally planned. So my question, I'll rephrase it, is, are you learning anything about the serialization, about your book in terms of how it's formatted because of the serialization?
Yeah, it's a tough question, and it's something I actually talk to different people about in the DMs. And there's actually going to be a blog post coming out where I talk about that also, to not write for Substack, but at the end of the day we are writing for Substack, or at least that's the medium we're using it. So it's actually a tough question, because I can say what one bad side or negative side could be is that you always finish off your chapter with a cliffhanger. And
Yeah.
that's just a bit it might be too much, because not every, you need some breaks too. You need some, I mean, I try to set a goal of having the chapters bring the story forward, show some character development or background. So these three things. I think there might be a fourth thing. I don't remember it right now. But so these goals, I always want to reach them with each chapter. But having a cliffhanger makes it a bit artificial maybe. So that's something that
If it wasn't already part of the story.
So that's not per se something. It's something that I think about when I write a chapter. And also, as I have a lot of first chapters sent to me, and they're sometimes very long, and I try to advocate for shorter first chapters for Substack. I keep telling people you write really well, it's great, but it's just people will most likely not read 20 minutes just your piece. So you might want to do chapter 1.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4 and publish them maybe twice a week at the beginning, just as advice. But that means for me it's clear that Substack is one thing, and the book you're writing, your manuscript, is another thing, format wise. So I want to keep it to the faithful to the manuscript of the idea I have, let's say, outside of Substack, while making it work also on Substack, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I guess the follow-up to that would be, do you break up long chapters then, so that it retains that sort of end state format?
My thing is, I have chapters that with 300 words to 700 words, so it's really short chapters, and I realize it's probably the shortest chapters that I see on Substack are my own. Not positive or negative, just saying that I kept them really, really short right at the beginning, and then later on they settle towards 600 words, because if I feel, I think that was the fourth rule. When I'm done telling what I wanted to tell, I stop writing. Not in a cut kind of way, but I don't want to bloat it, inflate it, and just with word vomit in that sense. Somebody said word vomit.
Yes.
But yeah, I just later on you can always add a paragraph. You're like, okay, here I need a description of the building they're in. Because I know I can write for hours and hours if I want to, but that's not what people want to. People don't just want to read words. They want a story. And that's also a point with the dialogues I write. I'm doing this, let's say, weird thing format-wise. It takes too long to explain, but it's just there is not he said, she said, and that kind of stuff.
I see.
But it's a bit difficult to follow at times. So that's something I gotta figure out, how to make it clear who's talking without adding words. And that's because when I read books, I don't care about he sighed and she said, she turned around. That stuff I skip pretty much with my eyes, or I'm not interested in that. I just read the dialogue. And I know other people do that too. And so that's something that I really want to stay faithful to, but I might do, for example, Giacomo double point, like text message kind of dialogue in the book at the end, just because it's more important for the reader to actually understand what's going on than for me to do it in my weird way. So,
when you skip over it in your head when you're reading somebody else's book, are you just saying that you process it, but you sort of skip over it? So you in your head you actually already know who was saying what, or your brain figures it out later, right?
And then sometimes I have to go back up a couple of lines if I skip too fast. I'd actually read the words and follow along, but it's just not clutter, but it's words that are not important because you want to know what the person actually said.
I see.
But so Substack, I think it's also my first story that I'm writing like that. I did some journaling and started some stories in my journal a couple of years ago, but it's the first one. And so the most important thing for me is to enjoy the process and find an end to the story that makes sense, and then polish it and have a product that I'm happy with, and then self-publish it or find a way to have it published. And then I have the next idea ready, and there I'm going to write already in a different way, I think.
Well, it's really interesting. How and why did you choose this as your first foray into serialized fiction at a public scale?
Well, first of all, I needed like an outlet. I needed something creative to do next to music and songwriting that I just do for myself, and also next to work that is not as intellectually challenging as I'd like it to be. And so on the side, I needed a project like that to really let that out. I love to write. I've always, people have always told me, oh, you write really well in different contexts, but never long stories or anything. So I was like, I'm just going to sit down, start a story. And so I had this idea with AI taking over. Well, I'm going to spoil it a little bit, but if you're listening, that's great. With AI talk...
You just skip a few seconds ahead if you don't want to hear the spoiler.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Because that's at the end of the chapter 15, and actually AI takes over in a positive way. That's a bit of the plot twist. Then the rest of this...
What? Nobody does that.
And the story, actually, from there on, it's not really about AI anymore. It's more about, humanity, society in that sense. But so my main thing was this creative and intellectual outlet, sitting down, writing a story from start to finish. And I actually wanted to write a short story. And then I realized, I'm not going to be able to write a short story because I keep having other ideas. And so that's how it started. And tomorrow morning I'm going to write chapter 39. And as I was in bed, I think 10 days ago, as I was sick with a bit of flu, I just thought of a way to connect a couple of things at the end to finish off the story. And so I just need to sit down and write it. Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful when your brain puts those puzzle pieces together for you?
Yeah, I love that. That's really special.
I think that's one of the best things about sort of the defragmenting of your head when you go to sleep, where you have all these sort of stray thoughts and you wake up in the morning and some of them have been pieced together on your behalf while your brain was just, while your body was resting, your brain was still working.
Yeah, that's something my mom always used to say when we learned something for a test the next day. And she was like, it's important before going to bed that you read it one last time, the summary or whatever we worked on, so that the brain keeps on working on it during the night, and in the morning it's something happened, and that's so true.
Right. I love that.
Yeah.